it's not possible to let go of the ego by convincing yourself that it's not you, by rejecting it. When uh, when one views the ego as not self, ultimately, uh, finally, basically, when this ability is manifested in your consciousness and you're able to actually realize, to actually see that uh, that the thoughts and emotions are not you, it happens by taking a vantage point of consciousness, by taking a vantage point of impartial observer, which is only something that you're capable of doing. That's basically what finding consciousness is. So the disidentification from the ego, the disidentification from the continuous thought process, and finding an impartial observer, the identification with consciousness, are one and the same thing. Now, it's not a product of rejecting experience, because even if you look at this identity of consciousness, of the identity of an impartial observer, the very interesting thing about this identity, the very interesting about this observer, is that it is truly impartial. It doesn't mind any experience in consciousness. It does not pick and choose any experience in consciousness. So you can say that even the presence of this observer, even the presence of this ability, must be correlated with your level of resistance to experience. Because if you are fundamentally finding it extraordinarily hard not to choose experience, and a lot of the activity is consciousnesses around clinging to certain experiences or rejecting certain experiences, orchestrating experience, trying to predict experience, then this ability cannot yet manifest. So this ability is related to the amount of resistance, to the amount of selectiveness, to the amount of fear of experience, which might not be something that you expect or might not be something that you want. You see? So when you put it this way, like, oh, it's not me, it might be unrelated. It might feel unrelated, might appear unrelated, but it's not actually. It is related in a very deep level. So from this position of a choiceless awareness, as it's called sometimes, or this impartial objective observer, from this position, the contents of consciousness, or you could say the unconscious, what used to be unconscious, is explored and accepted. So the presence of this impartial observer, the presence of this consciousness, when you just enter the witnessing stage, so to speak, sometimes we'll use this language, is needed to explore the egoic suffering. You cannot reject it. You see, just the very fact that this awareness is choiceless, the very fact that it feels impartial and objective and outside of mind, points to its ability to accept and get closer to any experience whatsoever. So it points to its presence being the result of acceptance rather than the result of rejection. So it is somewhat paradoxical, but so you can say the ego is not you and there is no self. Yes, but it is still a creation of your mind. right? So it's not you, but it exists in you. It's not you, but it's manifested in you. So it's not you, and it has never been you, but those are the processes that are going on in your mind. We can call them conditioning, we can call them coping mechanisms, as a result of something that has happened to you in the past, but they manifest now in the present, and they still exist in you, right? So paradoxically, the journey to the moment of seeing that it is actually not you, it is just something that you have created. So this persona, it is also a creation of yourself, lies through accepting, honestly looking at this persona, its thoughts, its emotions, its reactions. You see, so a lot of things in this journey are paradoxical on the surface. For example, the just the fact that letting go happens unexpectedly, and there's nothing that you can do to let go of something other than to give it your attention, to give it your awareness, to feel it, and then it happens, you know. Or the fact that uh, resistance to experience and the unpleasantness of the experience are actually one and the same. So it's sort of strange and paradoxical, and this is one of such moments in the spirituality. So you cannot arrive anywhere by rejection. If you keep reminding yourself that your emotions are not you, that your thoughts are not you, then you could actually end up learning to suppress them very well, so to say. You see, so it's not, seeing that something in your experience that you thought were you, that you identified with, is actually not. Just like letting go happens as a moment in a moment of insight when you spend enough time with it. You see, and that's what meditation does. Also, meditation puts you in solitude, and you are forced to witness the thoughts and feel the emotions, right? So if it's not actually a result of some technique, just like letting go is not a result of some technique. It's a result of the mind coming back to its natural state and identifying the pretender, so to speak. And in order to identify the pretender, in order to identify a falsehood, you actually have to look at it. You have to analyze it, investigate it, let's say, right? So you can investigate your thought and where it's coming from and what it tries to convince you of and whether it's true or not. And you investigate your sensations. You investigate your reactions to different thought processes. And so in my opinion, yes, self-realization is basically just a moment where, let's say, the how to put it in words, let's say the amount of investigation has reached a certain point. Your loosening of fear and rejection of everything that you might feel as a result of this investigation has reached a certain point, so that there is a certain level of surrender to something choiceless, to something that doesn't always try to curate your experience. So it is related to feeling and loosening of resistance in a very direct way. Now another topic, another point is that before self-realization, it might actually be too difficult to give direct attention to your emotion. It may feel too torturous, basically. But nevertheless, if you meditate for long enough, even before the realization, there will be difficult emotion, there will be difficult experience, there will be boredom, there will be restlessness. And even though it might be difficult for you to give it direct attention and hold it there, just like it might be difficult for you before any serious shifts that take place in the mind, to give direct attention to your breath and hold it there, right? But with emotion, it might be even more difficult because there's serious discomfort there. Still, just going through it and giving yourself time and seeing that the emotions come, the emotions go, practicing not rejecting any experience, not clinging any experience, but just dispassionately observe the experience, ultimately does come to fruition, oftentimes in a very unexpected way, like almost pretty much always in a very unexpected way. So when people find consciousness, it's almost always unexpected. So so in my opinion, yes, I cannot see how it would work otherwise. I mean, you could, like, my position on this is the following: you could develop certain techniques, like, for example, one of the technique that Ramana popularized is self-inquiry. Like, who am I? Who is asking me this question? And things like that. So here's an interesting thing about it. It is actually a technique of exhausting the mind, because there is no answer to who am I question that will satisfy the mind, or there is no answer to who am I question that cannot be challenged, right? So if you're doing the self-inquiry properly, then you wouldn't get a question from the mind, to an answer from the mind to the question of who am I, a satisfactory answer. So the answer is experiential. So the answer comes when you realize that the container in which all of this happened, the container in which both the question and an inadequate answer arise, and in which you can challenge the answer and continue questioning, this very container is much realer than the questioner, right? And you are both asking the question and hearing a response to this question in your consciousness. So it's a technique to exhaust the mind and finally see consciousness. And if you do it properly, and if you do it diligently, it's also not going to be easy. It's going to be maddening. It's going to be very frustrating. There could be all sorts of emotions. Well, how do you know if I'm that? And then if you're really used to thinking that you're, you have a very strong identity as something, like, who are you? I'm a mother. You have a very, very strong identity. Well, no, it's just a part of your life. So what not? I'm not a mother, then what am I? It could be quite emotionally tortuous. And if you're not ready emotionally for what comes afterwards, what comes after realizing consciousness, because after the realization of consciousness begins to explore the egoic suffering, because the true freedom of enlightenment isn't just a freedom of consciousness. Consciousness is always free. It's a freedom from continued human suffering. And so if you're not actually ready emotionally for what will happen afterwards, it just won't happen. It will just be a useless practice, and you just won't let it happen. So in my view, focusing on acceptance of any sensate experience, any internal emotional experience, or bodily experience during meditation and other spiritual practice, is the only important direction which leads to all shifts on consciousness by itself. So I don't view the process of enlightenment as some sort of important technique to reach self-realization, and then alignment and emotional work. I actually think this is a very big illusion in spirituality, and I think this is exactly the reason why techniques don't work for most people. I think that the emotional sensate work, working with experience, is the most important work, and all the other shifts in consciousness happen during it. So it's the most important work before self-realization, it's the most important work after self-realization, and it basically stays the same. So that was my experience, even though in the beginning I thought that it's all about the technique. I thought that I just found something. I thought that if I could, just hint to tell everybody that they don't exist, I thought that the most important thing is just to realize that the ego doesn't exist. But I was very much underestimating the fact that the only reason that I realized that is because I was emotionally ready for what followed. And I was ready to let go of the resistance to my fear, resistance to my tears, anger, hatred, and everything that I experienced afterwards. So that's why I view it this way, and I actually think it's a more mature and accurate view than that there is some sort of technique that can help you reach self-realization. This gets people stuck in decades of spiritual practice, which doesn't lead to anything.